Welcome back, YouTube. And for those who do not know me, hello, my name is Noah, and on my channel we talk about death, true crime, haunted people, places, and things, spiritual reparations, and how you can fuck around and find out. If you're not subscribed here, what are you waiting on? Go ahead and click the subscribe button and also turn your notification bell on. On today's episode, we will be talking about the happiest place on earth, and that is supposedly Disneyland and Disney World. I'm not gonna lie, y'all, I am truly disturbed, and researching this video literally ruined Disney for me in general, and I probably will not be going back. My kids hated it when I took them the first time. There's really no reason to go back unless my youngest, who was 4 and was not born at the time, asked me to take him. But this video, this research, stressed me out. Missing people, alligators, I'm not saying that word again, mysterious deaths, homicides, kidnappings. It's safe to say that Disneyland is very haunted and can be considered as a portal. So we're going to go down the rabbit's hole and watch some TikToks together. And of course, all of the creators will be tagged below in the description. Make sure you are giving them a follow. Also, some of the videos may be muted due to copyright infringements. So just bear with me and read the captions. This first video comes from a creator called Lights Out Podcast. I will be linking the podcast below and the TikTok page. And he is talking about the time that an alligator got to a 2-year-old.
2-year-old Lane Graves and his family traveled to Disney World from Nebraska. The entire Disney World property surrounds a man-made lagoon called the Seven Seas Lagoon, and they also put no swimming signs all around the lagoon. At 8 p.m., the Graves family gathered near the same beach to watch a movie, and as the movie played, Lane was building a sandcastle with some other children. One of the guests who had seen an alligator from his hotel porch earlier in the day now saw the children going out in the water. Quickly, he got up to go warn the family, but by then it was too late. Lane's mother's screams were heard throughout the resort, and as Lane went to fill a bucket of water one last time, the alligator lunged from the depths and grabbed him by the head. The alligator's jaws fully engulfed Lane's head, and his father ran out to try and save him. He grabbed onto the alligator's jaws to try and pry his son free, but it was no use. The alligator then pulled away and dragged Lane further into the lagoon. And the last thing his family saw was his son's shoes before disappearing under the surface. And it took over 16 hours to recover his body, and he had died from a neck injury and drowning.
Pure negligence on Disney's part. They have enough money to make sure not a single alligator ever crosses paths with any of the guests. Why they were having movie time next to an alligator-filled lagoon, I don't know. As if them no swimming signs mean anything. That baby wasn't even in water. Just tragic. This next video comes from an account called Only Disney, and they are speaking on a time that a 19-year-old tried to sneak into Disneyland during senior grad night. And y'all,
did you know a 19-year-old man who in 1966 tried to sneak into the park during one of the Disneyland's annual high school grad night events, where the park is closed early so graduating seniors can have the run of the place? He reportedly scaled a fence and then climbed onto the monorail track, with plans to walk across it until he found a place to get down. While security saw him, he did not heed their warnings and was not able to get off the track before being struck and killed by an oncoming train. There have been reports from other monorail drivers over the years that they have seen the spirit of the boy still on the tracks. It happens at night, but the vision vanishes before the train gets to close. Some reports have came from the Snow White ride stating they have seen something wandering in the dark spots of the ride. Only on camera footage can you capture the spirit, but do this at your own risk. And also remember, never ride Snow White alone past 10 p.m.
Why any 19-year-old man would want to go to a senior grad night is beyond me, but it's absolutely tragic that he was killed, and it's kind of stuck, it sounds like. Who knows? It could be him, it could be something else haunting the Snow White ride. This next video comes from an account called Perfectly Just Jamie 3.0, and it is a podcast interview from a grown man who said that he was snatched at Disney when he was 6 years old.
I was taken to a room when I was 6 years old off of a ride. It was the Wild Toad ride. And I was taken down into the tunnels and taken to a room where there was, it was filled with cages, much like you would see at a zoo or something. And in those cages were children. And those children were held there. They'd been abducted in some way, and they were held there, and they were being put through some extreme trauma. And they were disposable. They would be used for programming of the people like me who were being brought down there. And so we'd be made to kill them.
What he said does not surprise me because there is a whole tunnel system underneath Disneyland. I don't know about Disney World, but I know there is tunnels in Disneyland. I mean, you could get into the park from the outside, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but this man has no reason to lie. That's pretty fucking scary. This next video comes from a user named Psycho Polly, and he's talking about Walt Disney and cryogenics.
Have you heard the disturbing urban legend that Walt Disney was frozen to be revived later? A few weeks after Disney's death in 1966, a reporter for the National Spotlight newspaper claimed he snuck into St. Joseph's Hospital in Burbank, California. He said when he snuck in, he saw the deceased Disney suspended in a cryogenic metal cylinder. Later, people rumored that his freezer was stored beneath the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland. Just last year, there was another rumor that Walt was going to be thawed in December 2021, which I guess didn't happen. For some reason, when you look this up, there's like a million fact check articles on it, which probably means it's either completely false or that they really don't want you to think it's true. You guys think it could be true? Let me know in the comments.
Okay, do y'all think that Walt Disney froze himself? I don't know. Why would those people back then have the reason to lie? Cryogenics wasn't even a thing when he passed away. Where did they even get this name from? Who knows? If he's frozen, I'm just waiting for them to unthaw him. This next video comes from an account called Iron Graves, and he is discussing all of these mysterious deaths of employees that work at Disneyland.
Disney World, known as the happiest place on earth, is a popular destination for families and tourists seeking a magical experience. However, behind the enchanting facade, there have been unsettling incidents of mysterious deaths that have left both visitors and investigators baffled. Russell Roscoe, a 52-year-old attractions mechanic, lost his life on March 14th, 2011. This unfortunate incident occurred only one day after he was struck by a ride vehicle while diligently performing maintenance on Primeval Whirl, which is a roller coaster located in Disney's Animal Kingdom. Tragically, Russell was the second Disney employee to unlive while working on Primeval Whirl. In 2007, 63-year-old Karen Price was working on an elevated rider loading platform when she was struck by one of the roller coaster vehicles. She unfortunately perished 5 days later. Now, after Karen Price, Disney renovated the Primeval Whirl ride and installed sensors to prevent a similar incident from happening in the same area of the ride, and Disney was faulted and fined $21,000 by federal investigators. Following the untimely loss of Russell, Disney was fined again for nearly $69,000. According to the Orlando Sentinel, investigators with the U.S. Occupational Safety and Health Administration said Disney failed to maintain key gate sensors designed to alert workers to press an emergency stop switch whenever a gate is open to an area in which an employee could be struck by the coaster. There's plenty more Disney stories, so comment part 3 if you want to continue this series.
I'm glad that they put in sensors, but the fact that they were fined less than $100,000 and probably didn't pay any reparations to these people's families is crazy. This next creator goes by the handle Bionic Pig TV, and we are discussing another mysterious death of an employee who never really left the park.
There are a few deaths when it comes to Disneyland, but none are as creepy and mysterious as the death of Debbie Stone. Apparently, she is the sole death of Disney cast members, which obviously could be speculated by how much Disney hides stuff. But the way she died was so horrific, it left so many people scratching their heads as to whether or not it was an accident, negligence, or maybe something even darker. Debbie was just accepted into the Iowa State University, and in order for her to save money, she ended up applying at Disneyland because she did always want to work there, and she ended up getting a job as a hostess. And at Disneyland, a major ride there was called the Carousel of Progress, which was redesigned to become a new attraction called America Sings on June 28, 1974, an automated musical extravaganza that paid tribute to the musical history that America debuted. There were 6 theaters, and they rolled around in sequence as to allow the theater audience to experience each event, basically. During such show, it was the job of the Disney hostess to stand on the left side of each stage in order to welcome people in and say goodbye to the people as well. And to make matters more depressing of this case, Debbie ended up calling her parents to ask them permission to marry the person that she loved, and obviously her parents happily obliged, so she was probably in a great mood that day. A little later, around 10:30, when the last show got over and the stages were shifting positions, a guest from the adjacent theater heard a blood-curdling scream. When the operators rushed to the scene, they were horrified to see that Debbie Stone was actually crushed in between the walls of the theater. Still to this day, no one has any idea how this happened. You know, was she just not paying attention? Did she trip? Like, on the off chance that someone happened to shove her or push her? Like, no one actually knows what happened. But soon after this incident, and sometimes even till this day, people say that they hear the voice of someone telling people to be careful when they're on that, which people believe to be the ghost of Debbie trying to protect the people in the afterlife. May she rest in peace. That is a terrible way to go.
What a horrendous way to go. And then your ghost is still trying to protect people in the afterlife. It's tragic. This next creator goes by the handle TC Junkie, and she is explaining 2 very tragic deaths.
Deaths at Disneyland, the Matterhorn bobsled. 20 years apart, there were 2 tragic deaths on Disneyland's Matterhorn. The first death occurred in May 1964, 5 years after the Matterhorn opened. It was a quick and jerky trip around a track inside a snow-capped mountain. To keep guests inside, riders wore lap belts and their bobsleds. It was approaching midnight when 15-year-old Mark Maples of Long Beach got in line at the Matterhorn with 2 teenage classmates. Maples was savoring his freedom. His parents had just released him from weeks-long grounding so he could attend after-hours Elk Club event with his brothers. What happened next is truly murky. Maples sat in the middle seat and it was dark, so the other boys couldn't see what transpired. The bobsled was beginning its descent down the mountain, when one boy felt Maples bump into him. The boy said, "I was looking up, heard a noise, looked down, and recognized Mark's sweater as he was falling out the side." Disneyland officials speculated Maples unbuckled his seatbelt and stood up on the ride, apparently striking his head on the side of the concrete mountain, and falling vertically about 1 foot, landing beside the track of the sled. They estimated the bobsled was going about 20 miles per hour at the time of the accident. When paramedics arrived, Maples was unconscious. He was rushed to the hospital with severe head trauma and put on a ventilator. He died 4 days later, having never regained consciousness. Exactly 20 years later, the Matterhorn saw its second accidental death. Dolly Regina Young was visiting the park with 5 friends from Arizona. Around 3:30 p.m., Young and her friends loaded into a bobsled at the base of the Matterhorn. Young sat alone in the very back. A witness screamed, "Oh my God, someone fell out of the car," as the car was descending. Witness said she saw a female bouncing on her back on the tracks moments after presumably falling from her sled. For a moment, the witness said it looked like Young was trying to get up after she fell out. 33 seconds after she fell from her bobsled, the next ride vehicle came around the corner. Another witness yelled for his daughter to look away. A family from British Columbia was in the oncoming bobsled. For a moment, they thought the body line between the 2 parallel tracks was possibly a prop. It wasn't. The bobsled struck Young on the head and torso, killing her instantly and trapping the bobsled on top of her. She was decapitated. Something had clearly gone wrong with the seatbelt. In 1984, Young's husband filed a $5 million wrongful death lawsuit against Disney. The Los Angeles Times reported Disneyland defended about 50 negligence cases each year and had high success negotiating settlements in the vast majority of them. And indeed, 4 years later, just as the Young case was entering jury selection, both parties reached a settlement. After Young's death, the seatbelts on the Matterhorn were changed. There has not been a fatal accident on the Matterhorn since the death of Dolly Young.
This next creator goes by the handle Shug Nesson, and she's explaining some of the rules when you die at Disney.
Facts about Disney deaths you probably didn't know. No one can die at Disney World or Disneyland. Many believe Disney employees go out of their way to conceal deaths from the public, and no one can be pronounced dead until their body is removed from the park. Next, someone may have hung themselves on It's a Small World ride. According to this report, the ride came to a halt, and the riders were ushered through emergency exits, and as they exited, some users looked up and saw a hanging body. Once they were out of the building, they saw police cars and ambulances, but we don't know the exact date this happened because, again, the body is not pronounced dead until taken off the property.
That's bullshit. You can't be pronounced dead on their property. Why? Just because you don't pronounce them dead on the property doesn't mean that it didn't happen on the property. It's totally unhinged and weird. This next video comes from an account called Leakios, and I don't think this is the original creator, but I cannot find this video anywhere else on the internet except for TikTok. So I'm going to try to find the original and tag it. If you guys find it before me, let me know. But it is of a man exploring the underground tunnels at Disney. Just watch.
It's kind of short. It's gotten pretty dark. Glow stick. There we go. That's a little better. This was supposed to come up on Tom Sawyer's Island in Frontierland, which in 1956, Walt Disney was said to have given it to the state of Missouri, and the governor of Missouri was supposed to have annexed it. However, the state of Missouri doesn't confirm that. So I'm not sure if we're coming up in California still. It's getting kind of dark, so I'm going to throw my glow stick ahead of me to make sure there's no sudden drops or anything. Okay. I made it. I am in Disneyland.
Disney, why do you need those? What are those for? And why is it underneath the children's bathroom? You can literally hear the kids talking in the bathroom. What was the reason? These next couple of videos are videos taken from an ex-employee who pretended that he got lost in the Disneyland's back rooms. And even though people are saying this is how characters and cast members get from one place to another without being seen, in one of the videos there is something that's weird, and he even asked out loud, what is this back room? What are those? And nobody even... Y'all just watch and see.
Exposes the back room.
I've been freaking trying to get out of here for the last like 10, 15 minutes.
You weren't a cast member?
No, I just freaking tried to go to the bathroom and I found myself in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, I'm a guest. That's my card.
Let me get Carolyn to help walk you out.
Okay.
How did you get back in?
I just opened a random door and next thing you know I'm in here. What is that?
This is just an old building. We'll walk you out. Hang on just a second.
Okay.
You just need to get the right person to do it.
Man, Talking about stairwell after door after sheesh. What is this place? Whoa. What is this? This big empty area in here.
Having like back rooms and tunnels that aren't in the dirt to get cast members around where they need to go. But what was the room? That thing looks like, I don't know, it looks like a church or somewhere where people commune to do weird stuff. I don't know why that would be back there. What was the purpose of it? This next video explains or talks about some of the props that the Pirates of the Caribbean ride has or had.
There is a secret about Disneyland the company doesn't want you to know. If you rode the Pirates of the Caribbean ride back in the 1960s, you would be impressed with how realistic the skeletons looked. That's because when this ride opened at Disneyland, all of the skeletons on the attraction were actual human bones. Now, they tried to install fake skeletons, but Walt Disney thought they looked too fake. So instead, they worked with the medical center at UCLA to get their hands on the real thing. Today, Disneyland says that there are no longer any human remains on the ride, but some people are unconvinced. The bed chamber skull seems to have the most speculation around it. Insiders confirmed that it was in fact real, and others have said that this skull, in particular, was donated by a former employee.
See, this is why we believe that he was frozen, because why would you... What was the use of that? You couldn't use fake skeletons because they look too fake. And now you wondering why. 50 some odd years, your shit is haunted as hell. This next story comes from an account called Spooky Foodie, and she is retelling some of the most creepiest ghost stories that Disney employees have brought to her, but they mainly surround the same ghost. Just watch.
Real Disney Ghost Stories, sent in by you guys, Part 1. These Disneyland cast members wish to remain anonymous, but here are some stories about the little girl who haunts California Adventure. When I worked in Disney California Adventure, we would sometimes see a little girl and she would show up in the bakery tour alone. And usually by the time we figured out she was alone, she's gone. We asked another cast in the bakery and they said she comes by every now and then and wanders all the way to Little Mermaid. Before Disney California Adventure was built, it was a parking lot and she was hit by a tram, and since then her ghost has haunted the area. It's funny because there's a pattern here. Another cast member wrote to me about this little girl as well in Disney California Adventure. First of all, he says that every land has some sort of ghost. Like every little land in Disneyland has something that haunts it, which is crazy. The ghost I experienced the most and will stay with me is the little girl in the Little Mermaid building. She also likes to walk around on the Grizzly Peak side. She even pulled my keys out of my pocket because I wouldn't respond to her while I was cleaning a restroom and she was pounding a stall door. What? That is so scary. Here's another ghost story about the same girl. Apparently her name is Jennifer. I work at the restaurant on Buena Vista Street in California Adventure. Jennifer is very well known by cast members. She likes to lock the women's restroom doors. She turns candlesticks on the walls upstairs. I've heard a faint scream in the hallway on the second floor. She's pulled my hair a couple times, and she has shown herself to our custodial at 3 a.m. Have you ever had an encounter with this little girl spirit at Disney California Adventure? Let me know in the comments and keep sending me more Disney ghost stories.
You know, hauntings like that kind of suck because how do you get rid of a ghost that goes between this large park, like areas in this large park? You cannot smudge properly and get it out. So, I mean, somebody comment down below how you would go about exterminating a ghost that's been there and that still enjoys Disney's amenities. These next two videos are about an incident that happened last November and a little girl that went missing. Now, they're saying some of the same information, just bear with them, but one video goes deeper than the other. And just listen to this story.
I went missing a few days ago at Disneyland in Los Angeles, California. Hello, I'm Lee, a 4-year-old girl. It all happened on the afternoon of October 12th. I was playing with my mom in the amusement park, and when we stopped to eat, I asked for her permission to go to the restroom. Minutes later, my mom realized I was taking longer than usual. She decided to come to the restroom to find me and witnessed a terrifying scene, a man taking me through a tunnel that opened in the restroom floor. When she entered, the tunnel's door was already closing. My mother, shocked, reported the situation to the authorities, but no one believed her. The police inspected the restroom, finding no signs of secret doors or tunnels. The Disney park managers provided surveillance footage to the police, portraying my mother as if she were acting insane, leading many to believe she is mentally ill. Regarding my case, both the park and authorities refrained from commenting on my disappearance. However, it is widely known that Disney parks have secret tunnels and passages used daily by employees, and over 30 Disney employees have been accused and jailed in history.
Whoa! TikTok, y'all seen this? Hold on, let me pitch myself down to a little guy. Disney in the news, and they're saying that a 4-year-old girl came up missing. But wait till you hear how she came up missing according to the parents. Now, this article right here says a 4-year-old girl went missing at Disneyland in Los Angeles, as reported in a TikTok video, raising concerns and sparking a digital frenzy about the mysterious incident. Let me tell you. Now, we don't have a picture of the family or the kid. This happened to a Latino family, so the whole situation was told in their language. But through all the interpreters on TikTok, this is what they're saying happened. So this family, who was a Latino descent, said they went to this bathroom and saw a trap door similar to this open up, and that their daughter was down in there. They said the door closed, and they went to run and report it to security guards. They thought they was crazy. They said that they need to dig up this place in the bathroom, and they try to get these people to open this floor up so they can find their daughter. The daughter is still missing. Now these people have to go see psychiatrists because they're sticking to their story that their baby went into a hole in the floor similar to this at Disneyland in Los Angeles. And it's all over TikTok right now. Excuse me. It's all over TikTok right now. And y'all need to go check it out for yourselves because this looks extremely convincing. And you see, this is a real thing. The floor is opened up and trap doors to a... Now look at that. That looks perfect in line and don't even look like a trap door.
First of all, I would never let my 4-year-old go to the bathroom by himself. That's number one. But we should be able to, if you feel comfortable in your 4-year-old's ability to go to the restroom, we should not be concerned about somebody snatching her from underneath the floors. And the fact that they're gaslighting the family is crazy. And then I go to Google and try my hardest to find more information. Like, did they ever find this little girl? What's going on? And guess what? Nothing. So if y'all can find more information, please email me. I'm going to leave my email down in the description of this video. This next quick video is from Nostalgia Mountain, and it is telling about the time a Disney employee encountered a spirit.
People say Disneyland is haunted. This story from a former cast member changed the way I think of this attraction. Soarin' over California has two theaters, A and B. Theater B is notorious for oddly breaking down. Right below the screen there's a basement that no one is supposed to go while the ride's in flight. When the ride's in flight, there has to be at least one cast member in the theater at all times. This cast member was all by himself. The ride was in flight and he was watching the monitors. All of a sudden, he heard footsteps coming up the stairs behind him that came from the basement. He turned around and no one was there. Turning back to the monitors, he nervously waited for the ride to end. And that's when he felt like something was watching him from behind. The hairs on his arms stood up. And after this, he always traded his position with someone else.
So here's some more context to the first murder in Disneyland. I found an article in the LA Times dated March 9th, 1981, the day after the murder. Quote, Disneyland reported its first homicide in the park's history when an 18-year-old Riverside man was stabbed to death after an altercation with another man and woman, police reported Sunday. The incident occurred 10 p.m. Saturday, while the park was host to a private party for the Roar Corp of San Diego and Riverside, park officials said. The victim, Mel C. Yorba, was pronounced dead at Palm Harbor Hospital in Garden Grove, where he had been taken by Disneyland personnel. And if it sounds weird to you that Disneyland personnel transported this stabbing victim instead of EMTs, you're right to think that's weird. Just wait. Park security personnel detained Julie Hollander, 25, of San Diego, who was identified by witnesses as one of the alleged assailants. The other suspect had fled from Tomorrowland, where the stabbing occurred, and was apprehended by police who found him hiding in the bushes in Adventureland, investigators said. The second suspect was identified as James O'Driscoll, of San Diego. Both he and Hollander were booked by Anaheim police on suspicion of murder, and were being held in lieu of a $250,000 bail each. Park officials and police said it was not known what sparked the argument. A member of Yorba's family, the victim, said that he went to Disneyland with a friend and their 2 dates to, quote, have a good time. 3 days after this was published, the LA Times gave more details about how Disneyland handled this homicide, and it's not good. After Mel was stabbed, he was put in the back of a Disneyland van and transported by a park nurse and 2 security guards. The van was not equipped with warning lights or sirens and had virtually no life-saving equipment aside from oxygen. The county's paramedics were not notified of the stabbing. Disneyland also transported Mel to the Palm Harbor Hospital in Garden Grove, which is not a trauma center. He arrived to the hospital in cardiac arrest and bled to death from wounds in his heart and liver. The chief of operations for the local fire department said he and his staff learned about the stabbing only when they read it in the paper the following day. He told the LA Times, quote, we've been talking to people at Disneyland about this for years. Something like this is pretty hard to swallow, especially when we had a station just 1 minute away. Our medical unit was 3 minutes away. Healthcare experts and city officials commented that Disneyland's reluctance to summon paramedics was probably based on the fear that their arrival would mar the park's image. Witnesses gave police the following account of what happened during the scuffle. The woman told her boyfriend, James O'Driscoll, that a young man had pinched her buttocks. She pointed in Mel Yorba's direction. James grabbed Mel, who was with a date and another couple. He accused Mel of pinching the woman, which Mel vehemently denied. When James refused to release Mel, Mel struck him. The 2 of them then fell to the ground during the altercation, and Mel was fatally stabbed. James ran away from the scene and was detained by park security officers. At some point, he apparently got away because when police arrived, they spotted James trying to get out of the park through a gate, then chased him through a railroad tunnel. He was found hiding in some bushes in another section of the park. So within 6 weeks of this murder, a 34-year-old woman collapsed and died at Disneyland. This was really bad press for Disney, so they finally hired an ambulance service saying it wasn't permanent and that it wasn't in response to the 2 recent deaths. These medics drivers that they hired, however, are emergency medical technicians, not trained paramedics. They're only trained to know what to do until paramedics arrive. And still, Disneyland's nurse would be the one to decide if they call paramedics or transport the person in need themselves. As for James O'Driscoll, he was charged with first-degree murder and pleaded not guilty in late March. In October, he testified that the stabbing was an accident and made it seem like Mel Yorba and his 2 friends were the aggressors in the situation, and not him, which directly went against the statements from witnesses. James also admitted to dumping the murder weapon in some bushes when he saw police coming for him, and he didn't explain why he had 2 knives on him at Disneyland in the first place. The knife used in the murder was 8.5 inches, by the way. On October 25th, 1982, a mistrial was declared after 1 juror held out on a not guilty verdict. This was the only juror who believed James's story. The majority of jurors also eliminated the first-degree charge and opted for a second-degree murder charge instead. So the judge ruled that the prosecutors couldn't retry James for first-degree murder. Prosecutors took James back to court in May of 1983, and the jury found him guilty of second-degree murder. The judge called him, quote, a walking time bomb with a chip on his shoulder, before sentencing him to 16 years in state prison. So he's probably out today, unless he got in more trouble.
And that's when I would have put my 2 week in. You cannot pay me to work in a facility that is haunted and disturb my peace, disturb my spiritual peace at that. Y'all can have it. Get somebody else to do it. This last video comes from an account called Hollyweird Paranormal, and she is just going over the most haunted places in Disneyland Park.
Did you know that 80% of Disneyland is claimed to be haunted? Well, according to cast members that were interviewed for a 2023 article in InsideTheMagic.com, they have claimed that 80% of Disneyland is haunted. And here is a list of the most haunted locations to date. So you want to grab your emotional support ghost for this one. So first up is Disney California Adventure. This is more like a haunted adventure for the cast members that have to venture through this place all the time. So according to a lot of the cast members, the locker room at Disney's California Adventure is one hell of a creepy place. And it even has a lot of the cast members stop storing their items within this locker room because of the activity. According to one cast member, they've claimed that they've seen shadowy figures in the corner of their eye. They have heard the slamming and opening of locker doors when no one is around them or no one is present in their area, and this strange feeling of being watched. But it's not just the locker room that has people spooked. It's the area that is the Buena Vista entrance of the California Adventure Park that has a lot of people, especially cast members, on edge because they claim that that entrance and the shops that surround it are also haunted by this apparition of this little girl. Cast members have claimed that she's between the ages of 7 and 8 and she's often seen wearing a white dress. And those who work in the shops near the Buena Vista entrance have claimed that the stock rooms are places where she likes to hang out. One cast member has claimed that they've heard her run and giggle, especially after closing hours, and they've also heard the slamming of doors opening and shutting in and around the stockroom area when no one should be there. Another cast member has claimed that an object in the stockroom had broke by itself. It's as if something or someone had pushed it off a shelf and had fallen to the floor and broke into a million pieces. The next location is Splash Mountain, soon to be Tiana's Bayou Adventure. So currently this ride is being updated and it's being transitioned into Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and construction workers are getting a little creeped out on the activity that has been occurring during this renovation. So according to a spouse of one of the construction workers, he's claimed that every time he puts tools down, they go missing. So this is a really good example of what is known as a port, where you'll put something down 1 second and then the next second it disappears, then another second it ends up on the opposite end of a room or in a different place in that area. Sometimes it even reappears after several days in the most unusual places. There's actually been a small explosion and a set of small fires that have occurred during this renovation. Another construction worker has claimed that while pulling wire out of a wall, it felt as though someone was pulling the wire on the opposite end of that wall. So in other words, be prepared for more spooky stories from cast members out of Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Next up, we have Toontown. Ooh, I've heard many stories about this. I've had friends who've worked in this area and they've claimed that there's a ghost of a little girl that wanders here, and I believe there is a death of a little child on this property in one of the rides that occurred, I think, a decade or two ago. But according to cast members, the basement of Toontown is actually quite haunted. Allegedly, according to one cast member, he believes that there's a demonic entity, this is allegedly, because he's heard some demonic voices coming out of that basement. Maybe they were left behind from the Who Framed Roger Rabbit ride. I actually love that ride. But other cast members have actually seen trash cans in this location move on their own. Others have seen reflections of figures in mirrors over their shoulder, and many cast members believe that this is quite possibly one of the most active areas in Disneyland, which runs neck and neck with this other location, the Haunted Mansion ride. Haunted in every sense of the word. Cast members have claimed that they've seen an apparition of a little boy. Even those who ride the ride have claimed that they've seen something in the corner of their eye in their buggy with them. But it's not just the ghost of the little boy that has them spooked, it's also the living, because there have been accounts of people who have dumped their loved ones' remains, their cremated remains, inside this ride, and other rides as well around the park, but most often it's this one right here. That's not bueno, let's not do that. Have you worked in Disneyland and do you have a ghost story? Let me know in the comments below, and stay haunted.
Absolutely not. Get somebody else to do it. Like I said, I'm not disturbing my peace or them ghosts. They live there, that's their house. I'm not clocking into their house. Absolutely not. And I'm reading some of these comments, and baby, let me just read them for you. This commenter said, I worked in Disneyland hotels for 8 years. The Blue Sky Suite in the DLH's Fantasy Tower is haunted. Someone else said, I've been backstage by Walt's apartment, and for context purposes, above one of the buildings in Disneyland, Walt Disney had an apartment that he lived in. Okay, it was like his at-work apartment. They said whenever they were in Walt Disney's apartment and nobody was around, they smelled a cigarette being smoked. And there was no one in the room. And he was not smoking a cigarette. See? There are hundreds of comments under this video. I'm going to link it. Just go through the comments. The tea is hot. The spookiness is there. And yeah, this totally ruined my childhood. And you know, we're a big happy family. So if it ruined it for me, somebody else had to see it. Somewhere, someone had to be ruined as well. that is all for today. And if you want me to talk about a certain subject, it could be cryptid, it could be paranormal, it could be whatever, please email me. I especially want to hear you guys' ghost stories. I am working on a project and collecting all of the creepiest stories that you guys send me, paranormal experiences, things like that. So please send me an email. I will be linking it down below. And until next time, y'all do good, be good, and stay safe.